A lot of you reached out to me and said that recruiters are not picking me. I gave multiple interviews, but I am failing. What am I doing wrong? What it comes down to is there is so much competition in the market, you have to set yourself apart in every stage. And in this video, I'm going to give you some of the actionable items with examples that you can take and set yourself apart in the interviews as well as some of the other areas. How do I know all of this? Well, I have been a cloud solutions architect for over 9 years, and out of those 9 years, last 6 years, I have been a solutions architect working at AWS. I regularly take interviews and screen candidates, and in addition, I have mentored many to get high-paying solutions architect jobs, including at AWS. So whatever I'm talking about is from the actual experience and not just some Googled mumbo jumbo. Let's get started. How do you get selected for the interview? So basically, you have to talk to the recruiter. You cannot talk to the recruiter unless recruiter selected you. What is the first point of interaction between you and the recruiter? It's your LinkedIn profile. So let's say this is you, right? So this is you and you are actually good. This happens to my mentees and my students as well. So they're good, they work hard, they do a lot of projects, but being good is not enough. You have to prove you are good. And how do you prove that? You have to make sure it's reflected in the LinkedIn. So a lot of time what happens is, so basically recruiter and hiring manager, like recruiter and hiring manager who has all the power to select the candidates, they look at multiple LinkedIns. And let's say Tom and Harry are not as good as you. They haven't studied the concepts, they haven't gone deep. So your LinkedIn is subpar, right? So this is subpar. And if that is the case, recruiter and hiring manager will not give you the chance and they will go to either Tom or Harry. So we definitely do not want that. So you have to change your LinkedIn from subpar to super, okay? So how do you do that? So you have to think, how can you set yourself apart? So for example, for those of you who know Kubernetes, if you just say, hey, I have designed and deployed secure applications on Kubernetes, but guess what? Tom can say the same thing, Harry can say the same thing, right? It doesn't set you apart. So you have to say what you have achieved using what services. So for example, instead of saying I have delivered secure applications on Kubernetes, you could say that I have implemented security for a critical application which is serving external customers for a payment app, and I have secured it using admission controller, OPA, network policies, namespace segregation, etc. People say that I have done cost optimization on AWS. Again, very generic statement. Let's say if I am the recruiter hiring manager, I see this statement in thousands of profiles. So you have to think, how can you set yourself apart? So you could say, hey, I have saved more than 30% of the cost quarter over quarter using tools like Compute Optimizer or Spot instances, reserved instances, or perhaps analyzing cost and usage data. So this is your homework. And if you are a subscriber of this channel, you already know more than other people. Think about what you have learned with actual concepts using actual things and go to your LinkedIn and see if they are reflected. If your LinkedIn just have generic sentences like I have created scalable cost optimized architecture, that is very vague, right? And then go and add those pointers in. If you want a little bit more customized help based on your experience and body of work, check out the AWS SA Bootcamp that I run with limited number of students. In this bootcamp, I run live classes covering technical, behavioral, mock interviews, one-on-one, hands-on, LinkedIn, resume improvement, and more. Past students got high-paying jobs, including at AWS. You can sign up at the waitlist at sabootcamp.com. The next cohort opens up January 4th with a live webinar where I'm going to share the details, question answers, everything. Sign here to get more details. All right, back to the video. Okay, let's say you have a great LinkedIn, you're selected by recruiter, and then recruiter sends you to the interview. So this is very common. A lot of you tell me that I actually answered the questions and I think I'm right, but I did not get picked. You cannot just answer the questions. You have to delight the interviewer, right? You have to set yourself apart from the pack. So let's take a look at a couple examples. So one common interview question is, how did you do disaster recovery or DR for your AWS application? A lot of you actually answered this to me as well, is, hey, I'll just replicate it to another region. But that's very generic answer. That's not showing that you can think like an architect. So what the interviewer is looking for is how those disaster recovery strategies are chosen. Like, what are the different DR strategies and how do you choose this? So basically, you have to say there are different disaster recovery options that AWS recommends, and I will choose based on RTO and RPO. And then you can explain RTO, RPO in one sentence. And then you could say the available DR strategies ordered by highest to lowest RTO, RPO are backup and restore, pilot light, warm standby, multi-site active. Then you can explain one of the DR strategies in detail. The one strategy that's used a lot in critical production application is multi-site active. And then you should also know the challenges as a follow-up. What is the challenge of multi-site active? It's very expensive, right? If you're not comfortable, make sure you at least study one of the others so that after you say the name, then you actually give an example. In this case, this is multi-site active. The same application is replicated in more than one region. And even in this case, the database is very critical, right? Because applications are easier to replicate. Basically, you have auto-scaling group, you have EC2s, you have Route 53 sending traffic to different load balancers. But database is very difficult to do active. So you could say, hey, I am using DynamoDB. I'm using global table replication. I'm replicating the data. So whichever region the data is being written is being replicated to the other region real time. What if you have used RDS or Aurora? So say the similar thing. Aurora has global database, which is active passive. In case of a disaster, the passive instance can be promoted to active. For RDS, you have cross-region read replica, etc. So study up. And EC2s you already know. You could also say that, hey, just running, instead of running the minimum number of EC2s like 2 to maintain high availability, I will run more EC2s if the app is critical, and when the traffic shifts from one region to another region suddenly, because there are more than 2 EC2s running, so you could make desired count as 4, 5 or something depending on your app, right? Then the EC2s are already up and running, and as soon as the traffic burst comes in, it can handle it, right? So this is a great answer. See, it's not just saying I'll just replicate. You kind of told them what you are thinking, your thought process. You know about the 4 different disaster recovery strategies, and then you can explain one and answer any follow-up question. I'll give another example. So another question is, can you tell me about a microservice you have designed on AWS? Super common question, right? I'm sure some of you has gotten this. A common but average answer is, I will use application load balancer with EC2 auto-scaling group, LB with EKS, or API gateway with Lambda, and that will distribute the traffic. There is nothing wrong with this answer. So if you are thinking I gave the right answer, why did not I get chosen? It's because everyone's gonna give this answer, right? Everyone knows what is load balancer, what is EC2, auto-scaling group, etc. So why is this average? What the interviewer is looking for is how the microservice design works. Because even a monolith can be run using application load balancer with EC2 with auto-scaling group. Like, you can jam a big monolith into a large EC2, which I have done before, right, in my previous life. And then you can say, hey, auto-scale this. So the monolith will just scale. Even though EC2s are big, it will just scale. However, so just saying those does not mean it's a microservices design. You need to highlight microservice characteristics in the design. So sample good answer could be, hey, there are many ways to implement a microservice, but the most common pattern is the one below with application load balancer. Then you could say, hey, I will have Route 53 with a URL tied to the ALB, and then using path-based routing, I'll send the traffic to different target groups. So if it is cloudwithraj.com/browse, it will go to target group 1/by, target group 2, etc. And one of the big advantage of microservices, each one is independent of another. So each of these target group can scale independently, like this EC2s, Lambdas, EKS. Not only that, each team maintain the microservice, So even the language could be different. So microservice 1 could be coded with Python, microservice 2 with JavaScript, microservice 3 running in container in language Go, right? And they could have different database. So with this design, we have these independent microservices which are independently scalable. And if you need to implement a feature for, let's say, one microservice, you can just do that without impacting the others. By the way, if you're wondering where am I reading this from, so this is from my newsletter. So you can go subscribe to the newsletter, all free, and you can also get a dump of this in a PDF if you want. I'll give the link in the bottom so you can download the PDF for studying. So everyone knows the popular questions. You can just Google, right? And then you can search the questions. So think of the answer that you know, and then think how you can delight the interviewer. Always think about going an extra step and setting yourself apart from the crowd, okay? And I promise you, if you set yourself apart from the crowd in every stage, like a LinkedIn, a recruiter conversation, then in the actual interview, right, you will get the job. With that, best of luck in the new year. I hope all of you get great jobs.